What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 207 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have Jeff from GPS Trackit on the show to talk about GPS tracking for your work vehicles, equipment, everything from setup, use cases, and benefits of GPS tracking in your business. And GPS Trackit is a sponsor of the How to Hardscape podcast, so we can't say thank you enough to them for supporting the show, as well as to each and every one of you that have either gone to gpstrackit.com/how-to-hardscape to inquire about their services or even sign up. Or if you are watching our stories, we'll be sharing a bunch of stories there about GPS Trackit and GPS tracking technology in your business, as well as our YouTube channel at I Am a Hardscaper if you want to check out the full video there that I did on GPS Trackit. But without further ado, let's get into the show with Jeff from GPS Trackit. Today, we're joined by Jeff Alsop. He is the solutions architect at GPS Trackit, and it's a company that I'm excited about getting to know further. I've got my tracking device. I've been using it. A very, very great software, very, very great tracking device, GPS tracking for work vehicles, equipment, and so on. So, Jeff, I'm excited to dive into this company a little bit further with you, get to know more about yourself as well as GPS Trackit here, because I'm myself got a lot of questions for you as well, as we kind of discussed off air for a little bit there and going over reports and everything. But Jeff, thank you so much for joining us here.
Yeah, no, great. Appreciate you having me, Mike. Happy to be here.
Jeff, let's get started to get to know a little bit more about you, yourself, and GPS Trackit. Kind of take this wherever you want, and maybe I'll ask some follow-up questions. But Jeff, what got you started with the GPS tracking and coming on as a GPS Trackit?
You know, I kind of tripped into it. I was a telecom rep beating the streets in my early 20s, and I stumbled upon a company that was doing GPS tracking, and then that's how I kind of originally got roped into it. And then I've built a 18-year career out of it with multiple facets of changes and opportunities within the organization, and it's been a fun ride. So that's kind of where I started. So as a solutions architect for the business, primarily on the sales side of things, but think an engineer type. So sales acumen plus some technical expertise. We'll work primarily with the sales department and then cross-functionally with software development, with operations to see what improvements we can make in strategy and in platforms. So it's a fun position to get in, to kind of get my hands in everything that we do. So.
Definitely. And then GPS Trackit. Who is GPS Trackit? How did this whole company kind of come into existence? Can you give us a little bit of context about GPS Trackit and where it is today?
Yeah, so GPS Trackit has been around since 2002. So we're pumping out 21 years of service in the telematics industry. Software-based company to help fleets out in the field to improve their top and bottom line profitability. What we're doing is we're taking that telematics data and making it make sense, right? Creating actual dashboards and reports out of it so that companies can monitor their results, right? Giving them visibility so we can help out with cost improvement, help out protecting assets, and then improving the safety culture of the business to mitigate risk. There's a broad spectrum of products we offer that can really accommodate whatever needs a mobile workforce has out in the field. So, but right now, currently servicing 10,000 plus fleets out in the market, tens of thousands of individual users of our platform. And it's been a lot of fun, and we're just looking to continue to grow as a software company, right? Especially as a technology industry, you got to continue to grow, enhance, innovate. And one of the things I think we do best in the market more than anybody else is listen to our client base. I don't want it to sound niche or used car salesman like, but you know, we have a major customer focus within the organization. I think one of the ways we show our value more so than some of our competitors is on the service side, the post-sales support side, right? There's a lot of similarities. It's a kind of a keeping up with the Joneses industry. And so there's a lot of similarities in telematics companies. Everybody's got a dot on a map. Everybody's got relatively similar feature sets. We've got some bells and whistles some don't have. They've got some bells and whistles we don't have. But I think it all boils down to the ABCs of business, right? Just if I'm going to buy a solution from you, I want to be taken care of. And if there's an issue, let's fix it quickly. And what we really view this as is more of a partnership than anything, right? We consider we don't even like calling them clients, we like calling them partners, because that's what we're there to do. Hopefully our software is impacting their business and helping them be more profitable. Think about it from an emotional standpoint, right? You own a business, right? You own a small business, a landscaping company, medium-sized business. Like, that's emotional to you. That's your baby, right? You're building your life around that company. And so I think we take that mindset into how we operate our company. We really want to be a part of your business life and helping you grow your business and improve your business in the best way we can.
And I can attest to that service. GPS Trackit, when I initially reached out, got back to me like almost immediately. Whereas, and especially in these past few years where demand for services, demand for products has increased drastically, the drop off in service has been astronomical. And I always like to support those businesses that really have their eye on service and are really there for you throughout the entire process, from before you're even a client all the way through to your client and you need that support. And GPS Trackit's been there the whole way. So I can definitely firsthand attest to what you're talking about there with that service there.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
And so going off 10,000 fleets, what kind of services, what kind of businesses is GPS typically bringing in as a client, or what are the different industries that GPS Trackit does serve there?
Yeah, great question. Anybody who has a label on the side of their truck, Mike.
Yeah.
Honestly, right? No, I mean, we think about the workforce, the mobile workforce. So this all really got started in your type of industry, the trades, the field services type industry. So think lawn and landscape, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, pool cleaning companies, think stuff like that. Light construction, like roofing, remodeling companies, stuff like that. But heavy construction too, larger construction organizations, over the road trucking and logistical companies, maid services, right? So there's such a broad spectrum of businesses that we can accommodate. So yeah, primary focus is really, there's a large addressable market with a mobile workforce, whatever industry that may be. I think we have solutions that can accommodate those specific needs, because the application offers a lot of universal feature sets that are beneficial to most companies. And then there's some niche services that we offer certain industries that make more sense.
All right, so let's get down into the actual installation of the device and what the software actually does here. So getting into the basics here. If somebody was to sign up with GPS Trackit for work vehicles, what kind of device do they get? How easy is this to install this device, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. So on a work truck, there's a variety of ways we can do this. If you want to go the plug and play route, which I typically recommend, super easy install. It's a less than a minute install if you want it to be. You can walk out, plug it directly in. We have a relocation cable if you feel more comfortable hiding that device, leaving your OBD2 port or your J-bus port open on a heavy duty vehicle, so you can plug in for diagnostics on a mechanic type basis. So deployment is extremely fast and easy. The biggest reason I recommend the plug and play device is because the accuracy and the fidelity of the data. We're getting engine computer data. So think odometer values are accurate, mileage is accurate, engine hours, diagnostic trouble codes, which play a major role in helping maintain your vehicles properly. You're getting those out of the plug and play device. Things like battery voltage, coolant temp, RPMs, some different data metrics that you can use to maintain the health of your fleet. For those that want an even more discreet install, you've got hardwired options, relatively straightforward, hot ground switched on ignition. So really flexibility in what makes the most sense for you as a business, what you feel most comfortable with as a business, but extremely easy installation either way.
This software, what is it going to help us track in terms of? Actually, first I want to bring up the employee situation behind this, because I have talked to a couple of people, and this was something that came up where people would be less willing to implement a GPS tracking system into their company because they might get pushback from their employees and things like this. Is this something that you may hear? And what are some things that you would do to be able to help a business owner bring it up more so to their employees as a positive rather than focusing on those negatives? And this kind of does lead into, for me, to talk about the score features, giving drivers safety scores, which I love. And that's something that I will be talking about in the near future for this channel. But what about you yourself, Jeff? Have you seen something like this come up with business owners? And how can you typically kind of make that a little bit easier of a transition for employees?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And we do hear that periodically in the GPS world, and even more so as we move into dash cam technology, right? Now we've got a camera in the vehicle, and it feels like, in the rub is, to employees, it feels like Big Brother, right? Yeah. It feels like they're intentionally watching me, trying to catch me doing something incorrect or wrong. If I'm a business owner, how I speak to them is, it's not about that. It's about transparency in making your business more profitable, allowing you to do more with less, right? More productivity, more efficiency allows you to utilize a smaller fleet and do more with it, or grow the business, right? You feel more comfortable. Imagine 5 trucks on the road with no GPS, and then imagine 50 trucks on the road with no GPS. Right. It gets super scary real quick as you grow, because you lose the visibility and the transparency into how your business is operating. So it's more about efficiency of the business, making the business more profitable. Now, for employees, it's okay, if our business is doing better, if it's more profitable, if we're growing, that's better for you as a whole, right? So larger businesses offer better benefits and better services for their employees, don't they? So if we grow, we might have opportunities there. Also think of employee safety. It's nice to know, especially in specific industries, think utilities and something like that, where they're working with electricity, or construction companies where they're working with heavy equipment, to know exactly where your employees are, where their vehicles are, who's operating which assets, so that if somebody needs assistance or needs help, you know exactly where to send it, right? So that's kind of the safety emergency aspect of it. But we also got to recouch it as, there's a positive benefit to drivers, right? What the data can also allow business to do is create driver incentive programs around good behaviors, right? If you're doing your job, you're being effective, your billables are great, you're completing jobs on time, you're driving safely, well, let's be positive about it. Let's reward that. Let's create a bonus structure around reduction in idle time because we're not wasting fuel, safe driving because we're less likely to get into accidents, right? Quick story. I know this is probably a question coming up, but I was at a safety conference for a really large field services. It was a pool company last year. And the highlight of it was I got to work with the HSE director and do a full presentation. And we took things like rapid acceleration, hard braking, hard turns as the 2022 metric or 2021 metric at that point, right? So that's what we focused on for that entire year. And how they got buy-in to it was there was a big reward for the top 3 drivers in the company at the end of the year. And so we got to present that to those top 3 drivers at the end of our safety discussion and our safety meeting. And it boiled down to 1/100th of a point between the number 1 and number 2 drivers. And it made this environment of competition where they're going to get a reward. They want to be the safest person in the field. And we saw tremendous downturn in those safety events over the course of the year through kind of proper management and proper messaging around, hey, we're not here to stare at you all day long, right? What we're here to do is make sure we're operating safely. Because think of it this way too. You service a community, right, Mike?
Yep.
So you want your reputation in that community to be pretty stellar, right? You don't want your guys running people off the road, cutting people off, right? Creating incidents. So it also impacts your business in that way, right? I mean, for you, I'm sure a portion of your business is from referral, right?
Yep.
Ever After Landscaping does an amazing job for me. So therefore they refer you to their friends, or your reviews are really good online. And so people seek you out and look for, top rated landscaping companies in the Toronto area, and you pop up, right?
Yep.
So that's all goes part and parcel to how your employees behave in their vehicles in the field, right?
Absolutely.
So there's this massive downstream effect. I know the original question was, how do we couch that to owners to make them feel better about their discussion with employees? And so I think you can kind of wrap all that in one, right?
Yeah.
Create that positive atmosphere. Let them know that what they're doing in the field impacts how well we do as a business, impacts the referrals we get, things of that nature. And so they get to play a part in that and feel more a part of that company, that what they do in the field matters, right?
Yeah, and that was a perfect answer to talk about that scoring concept too. I really love that. And just to go off of the reason why I love that so much, especially for me just starting out, like I'm a one crew, 2 employees, 1 truck. So even when I was thinking about GPS tracking, I thought, you know what, like I'm too small to have something like that. I don't know quite the uses that I would use for it. And then as I thought further, the biggest use for me is as an owner operator where I'm the most skilled person in the field and I have 2 laborers. I need to stay on the job site as much as possible, which means that my employee I'm sending to get supplies if we need supplies. And I want to make sure that that employee is treating my brand properly on the road and not hard braking, not hard accelerating, and so on and so on. So even as a small company, which has, I mean, there's so many other use cases that I'm going to get into as well, but that I see as like one of the most crucial use cases for me as a very small business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's one truck in too small, right? Because
yep.
like we discussed, that you create a lot of efficiency out of that one truck, start earning more business. Now you go to 2, then you go to 3, then you go to 4. Like I'll tell you, the largest residential services company, I think in the United States, was a client of mine. Over a decade ago, they started with 10 trucks. They've got over 300 now.
Wow.
Right. That's the growth potential. And I think to a minimal degree, our solution plays a role in that growth, helping them have the tools to feel comfortable doing that. Right. And that's obviously ultimately your goal, right, Mike? You want to grow your business and more crews. And the more you do that, the more you need a solution like this, like a GPS Trackit tool to maintain that. Because at some point you're not going to have to be in the field anymore, right? If you're going to be you're going to be managing the business from afar, and again, it goes back to that visibility and transparency as an owner, knowing that the business is in good hands. My reputation is being put on display very well out in the community, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm in a very fortunate situation to implement GPS Trackit into my business because like my initial question kind of went off of employees are coming into my business and GPS tracking is just baseline. They never knew anything different. So I don't have that pushback from employees ever. It's just when they come into the business, they know that there's GPS tracking and so on.
Yeah. And when we think about those safety things, especially, we got to get you in the dash cams and have some fun with those, right? But it's really, for me, it's all about prevention. The more vehicles on the road, the more inherent risk you have and opportunity there is for an incident. And so what that does is just help protect you guys in the long run. If drivers are more aware of how they're operating the vehicle, and with our dash cam solution, it's more evident because there's in-cab real-time coaching coming from the AI and the camera that helps them, make them aware of how am I driving, right? It becomes gamification in the vehicle. I've had a dash cam in my vehicle for over 2 years. I drive completely differently than I did 2 years ago. Why? Because I don't want the camera to talk to me. It's a game. Right? If that camera doesn't talk to me all day long, I was incredibly safe, right? I feel good about it, right? Now, I do a lot of the testing and my camera's on our demo account for sales. So, there is content that I might intentionally create, right? So that we have some videos to watch when we're doing sales demos, but it really does change the mindset and it helps your drivers be more aware. Without the dash cams, you still have those tools from an administrative standpoint, right? Via that risk card or the behavior report that we offer you guys, so you can kind of understand from a vehicle wear and tear perspective or from a speed perspective, how is the vehicle being operated? And then you take those metrics to do that individual coaching, and it all leads back to prevention and performance for your business.
Absolutely. And getting into more features that the software has to offer. We talked about that behavior report, the scorecard, the risk factor of drivers. Any other software features that you would want to highlight here for specifically landscapers, but also in the green industry where we have lawn maintenance, lots of trucks going out and routes and everything? Any other features that you want to highlight here?
Yeah, I mentioned top line and bottom line profitability, right? So let's kind of take those twofold. Ultimate goal of our solution is to reduce operating costs, overhead costs. That creates return on investment, right? But also increase productivity and efficiency to increase revenues. So what happens if we increase revenues and reduce operational costs? Now we're a much more profitable business. What can we do with that, right? We buy another truck, we grow, we create driver incentives programs and give bonuses. So when a business does better, everybody does better, right? So let's take those top line impacts. So if we're optimizing routes, that gives us the ability to get more jobs done per day, right? On average, we typically see an extra job per week done by trades or field services industry. So let's think about that. Maybe not so much in your world necessarily. There may be well, let's say you're doing hardscape design, right? There's probably a fee for you to go out, do the evaluation, do the quote, things like that. So let's call that $50. So if you do one more of those per week, you got one truck right now. That's an extra $200 to you a month in revenue by just one extra job. That doesn't even include you win that bid and you do all the additional hardscape work, landscape work for the client, right? So just take that $200 times 12 months. That's an extra $2,400 in your pocket with one vehicle. Now, what if you had 10? That's $24,000, right? Back to the business. So being able to improve efficiency and adding that extra job through the idea of route optimization or making sure that you mentioned before we got on the call that you're servicing these different cities, these different areas. We're talking about geo-fencing those areas, right? So if I've got multiple trucks, then I'm going to probably segment that in territories, right? That truck one goes west, truck east, or truck two goes east, truck three goes north, truck four goes south. I'm not going to have truck one go east, west, north, south, and drive all over the place, right? Because the more windshield time they have, the less time they have to be on a job site. So if we truncate where our jobs are accurately, we get more done in a day inherently. Right. It's just simple math and travel time, right? So there's a top line. I talk a lot about with my clients or partners, making sure we have the right sized fleet. So what does our utilization look like, right? So if we have underutilized assets, can those be used for something else or move to a different branch of a company or move to a different job site because they're being underutilized? Do we have enough crews? Do we have enough vehicles, right? Right sizing your fleet and understanding utilization can increase profits. That's top line improvement. We talked about online reviews, referral business, right? So improved customer experience through better dispatching, getting your drivers there or your technicians there more quickly, being able to respond to customer requests in a real-time fashion because you know exactly where your vehicle is, where they are, who can get there the fastest, right? So that improves your brand recognition in the community as well. And then also from a billable standpoint, more accurate proof of delivery of service. This is when my vehicle arrived. This is when they departed. This is the work they did. So especially if you're billing a job on a time basis, on an hourly basis, we have more accurate billing, right? So those are top line improvements. How do we increase revenue through efficiency? Bottom line stuff, lowering fuel costs, being able to monitor idle time, monitor excessive speeds, monitor rapid accelerations which use more fuel. Those are all metrics and feature sets that we can monitor for businesses to lower fuel consumption, lower fuel costs. And with fuel costs the way they are today, I mean, I live in Texas. It's just been steadily climbing over the past month and a half. It went from $2.50 something now to $3.60 in less than a month, over $1 a gallon, right? Wow. I drive a big old 1500 Silverado. It went from 60 something bucks to close to $80 to fill up now. Wow. So, right. So 25% increase in cost of gas for me in the course of a month. So every hour of idle time is approximately a gallon of gas used. So let's think about that. If you're lucky enough to be in California where it's still $5-6 a gallon and you're idling for an hour plus a day on average, that's $25 a week, $100 a month. If you have 10 trucks, that's $1,000 of wasted fuel a month, $12,000 of wasted fuel a year. Simple math really helps our partners understand where some immediate benefit is, right? So other bottom line impacts, you're reducing the miles driven through route optimization, you're using less fuel. You're reducing maintenance costs potentially too. There's a maintenance module within the system that will allow our partners to make sure their PMs are completed on time, logging those costs so we can understand, hey, do we have an older vehicle? It might be time to retire because we have excess maintenance cost on that vehicle, right? Reducing wear and tear or major mechanical problems by maintaining vehicles on time. That goes back to that plug and play reference we had earlier, where it's really nice to know if I have a DTC. So if my vehicle throws a code and there's an issue, I can pull that vehicle off the road and get it repaired before I have more of a major mechanical problem. Payroll, right? So for you specifically, in your industry specifically, one truck does not equal one paid employee. One truck in the landscape industry generally means 2 to 4 to 5 employees, right? So if we have inaccuracies within our payroll in the lawn and landscape industry, that can be exponential to you, right? If we've got an issue of 30 extra minutes on one day, and now multiply, that's 30 extra minutes for 5 guys. So payroll can get really scary real quick if we don't have accurate ways of tracking that. And if most service industries, the work hours correlate to vehicle usage, right? I'll give you an example. That same electrical company I talked about that grew from 100 to 300 plus, one of the primary use cases they had for our system was the report we talked about earlier. The travel start and stop report shows all trips. So what they did is the payroll started with the technician's first arrival on the first job site for the day. That's when it started, right? So we're providing that data. What was the first arrival time on the first job site? And they paid up to 15 minutes after they left their last job site. Now, they got really adept at it, and their last job for majority of their drivers was always within 15 minutes of the driver's home. So they let the drivers take the vehicles home, or they put them close enough to the office where it was a short trip back. But that single report helped them keep accuracy in payroll on how they wanted to monitor and manage that. So we can typically see up to an hour per week per driver reduced in payroll if there's some inaccuracies there, especially if it correlates to vehicle usage. And the big ticket right now is dash cams. So how do we help companies lower insurance costs, mitigate risk, lower the cost of insurance claims, things like that. So we take those, again, those top line impacts, which improve revenue, those bottom line impacts with reduced overhead costs, and it's pretty easy to make this system pay for itself pretty quickly.
Definitely. And I love those micro things to look at where you're talking about idle time, you're talking about wasted fuel. And if you can just improve on those and the impact on your bottom line throughout a year, let alone as soon as you add that second truck, it doubles, that third truck, fourth truck, and so on. It just compounds. So I always like to think about those micro inefficiencies, those micro waste of time and money. And GPS Trackit really helps with those reports to be able to generate and see those different areas that a business could definitely improve on.
Yeah, and you got to, sometimes you just walk before you run, right? People get the new software, but our goal as a business, especially on the sales side, is to understand the use case that you're being presented with. What are the challenges? What are the pains that they're experiencing right now that we feel like there's a solution for, that we can help create a best practice around within our software to alleviate those pains, right? So sometimes we just start small, right? Maybe fuel consumption is the biggest pain. Let's talk about idle time. Let's start with idle time. Let's do the first thing is you get a dot on a map that shows you where your guys are, more transparency, you feel more comfortable, right? But then we're going to use that idle time metric as our kind of our first base. Let's get that under control, start seeing some ROI, and then let's start growing into other portions of the system. So it's a walk before you run approach because there's a lot in there that can be done. And ultimately what we want our partners to become is a power user. Use every single ounce of this solution to make your life easier when it comes to running your business.
And even in my small business, and we were talking about this off air, I'm just trying to capture an average drive time from where I'm located to different cities where I service so that I can actually use that data to mark up the amount of hours that I'm billing out on a project there. And GPS Trackit has a solution for that. And the reason why that's so important, and somebody could say, well, just go on Google Maps and see the route. Well, when I'm estimating, it's at nighttime. And if I just use, say, Google Maps to show me the route and then mark it up by that many hours, I'm getting data on real time, which is no traffic, as opposed to the actual data when I'm driving at the beginning of the day and driving home at the end of the day. And that differs from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, especially where I'm driving to in a big city, concerts going on, things like this, all these things that Google Maps just won't tell you, that I can actually just build up this data in a database and be able to refer to whenever I need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we want to make it easily accessible, right? Intuitive, and providing you data that helps the business. And we got in the soft dev side and the UX side of things, and how we design the platform, it's simple motto, it's less clicks. Like ultimately what we want to do, Mike, is we give you the software and it's easy enough to figure it out on your own that you never even have to be trained on it, right? Keep in mind, everybody listening, we do offer free unlimited training. So you can schedule that with our excellent training staff. But ultimately the goal is I can log into it, I can figure out things pretty quickly on my own, and that's really beneficial when you're trying to get off the ground with a GPS solution and get it deployed and start seeing immediate benefit. Right? That's what we ultimately want, is for our clients to see that immediate benefit right from the start, and we want to be part of that proper onboarding and training process so we can accomplish that quickly, so they feel really good about the investment they make with GPS Trackit.
And speaking about onboarding and the training available, really helpful. I mean, GPS tracking, the software, GPS Trackit, the software is very intuitive. It's very easy to kind of get going. But just sitting in on that onboarding call just helped and made it so much easier to know exactly where things are and what I need to do and the capabilities. Great starting point, and really, really helpful for that. But I do want to ask you here, Jeff, misconceptions people may have about cloud-based vehicle tracking software. Any misconceptions that we haven't already kind of covered there, where employees might see it as something negative if a business owner tries to implement it? Any other misconceptions that you see in the industry?
Yeah, I think it goes back to onboarding, right? Especially if you move upscale and upstream into larger companies, it's the idea of we don't have time to deploy this. It's too difficult to get all this on our vehicles. We went back to the ease of installation. We also work with third parties for installation. A lot of larger companies also have their own mechanic staff. So ease of installation helps be able to deploy a tracking system pretty smoothly and pretty efficiently, right? That also goes back to the onboarding process of being able to train those employees, get them up and running on the solution so you can start seeing that immediate effect. That's another misconception is, oh, this is going to be too hard to learn, right? I don't have time to learn a new tool, a new solution. But we offer assistance in that way, on top of trying to make the application extremely easy to use. And then there's also misconceptions about, I don't necessarily have time to manage this. What we want to do is create an environment with our software where you don't sit and stare at a computer screen. So think about different roles you play within your business. You're the owner, you're sometimes the dispatcher, you're sometimes the safety supervisor, the HSC manager, right?
Yeah.
So think about there's a place everywhere in our software for each individual user. So the dispatcher is going to live on the map quite a bit, going to live in the status tab of where are my vehicles right now quite a bit and use those tools. So there's something for them there, right? There's a place for the safety director. It's leveraging dash cams for higher prevention and protection protocols, using that behavior report and the risk factors to manage their side of the business. On the maintenance side, it's the maintenance tab for your in-house mechanic to be able to manage that. And so there's not necessarily somebody having to do everything. Now, in smaller businesses, that might be the case, but there's individual modules that make each of those jobs a little easier for you, right? And then it's the idea, again, of I'm staring at a computer screen all day. I got to watch this like a hawk. You really don't. Through the alerts we have in the system and the automation we can create within the platform, if there's reports you really like, let's schedule them. They're automatically going to be sent to your inbox daily, weekly, or monthly. You don't have to take the time to manually run those reports. We ultimately want to move you guys into a managed by exception, right? You've identified your inefficiencies or the challenges you're facing, right? We've acted upon that information using the tools we have in the GPS Trackit platform. And now I want to set up those alerts to monitor it so that I know in real time when there's a parameter that I want to watch is violated. And now I've got a real-time alert so I can make proactive business decisions versus spending hours reviewing reports and trying to dig the gold out of there, right?
Right.
That's what the alerts are for. So misconception, it really is, I don't have time to utilize this software. Well, after proper onboarding, making sure we understand as a company what you want out of this solution, we can recommend best practices. Start setting up that managed by exception. Start setting up that monitoring part of the system with those alerts. And then you're going to know everything you want to know in real time without having to even look at the screen.
And does the data ever disappear? Do we ever lose that data that if I wanted to recall something from last year, I could still get it?
No, not at this time. It's lifetime data storage on the platform for all the telematics data that you can get.
I would say a big misconception for me was not thinking that I would be able to use it in any use case situation, being that I'm such a small business. But we've already covered that, and I've found a lot of great uses for it. And I will be happily a GPS Trackit customer for that. But I did have a question on the top of my mind. Oh, alerts. You talked about alerts there. We haven't discussed alerts, and that's another cool feature. What alerts can you set? What does this help a business owner with, and so on there?
Right, absolutely. So most common ones are we went to that idle problem, right? So most common one is I want to set an idle alert. Let me know when my vehicle idles for over X amount of time. And so that I know that in real time, where again, I'm not having to comb through a report to see that type of data. So being able to be notified of that in real time helps us understand the behavior and help try to coach that out of our employees. Speed's another big one, super common one, right? Higher rates of speed. That equals more fuel consumption, potential risk. If you got your company vehicle flying 90 miles an hour down the highway, right? That's also relatively damaging to the reputation if he's blowing past people in a company van that's a driving billboard. And then also against posted speed from a safety standpoint. So in my opinion, there's a big difference going 40, 45 and a 30 than there is going 80, 85 and a 70, right? There's a lot more happening on surface streets, more pedestrians, more things to have incidents with. Majority of the accidents we see on the news are those real gnarly highway ones, right? But the vast majority of all accidents occur at 35 miles an hour or under. So it's not when guys are doing 80, they're doing 30, 40 miles an hour. And I've had experience with that. The only two incidents and accidents I've ever been in my life, I was going 25 or 30 miles an hour. As a silly teenager, I was waving to my buddy driving by and I rear-ended somebody. And then I was going 30 miles an hour down a residential road, and a guy blew through his red light and I T-boned him. And the amount of damage that created on my truck was unreal. And I was only doing 30, 35 miles an hour.
Wow.
So got a little off topic there, but
we've covered a lot in this interview so far. I just have, I guess, one last question here for you, and that's any cool new features coming down in the pipeline in the near future? Any new hardware, anything being developed that you could possibly give us a sneak peek on? But I'll just leave it up to you, Jeff, there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Going back to my original comment, as a technology company, as a software company, you have to continue to enhance and innovate, right? We have to listen to our partners on what is needed in the field for them. So absolutely, I can share a little bit with you, and hopefully I don't get in trouble, right? But no, we got a lot of exciting things come out. Our development staff works on a quarterly commit to understand new features we want to engage for our clients. So we're doing some new device launches coming up in the next couple of quarters for a solar powered device for assets. We're commercializing a really nice engine connected heavy equipment device right now too. So think of like Cat, John Deere, Bobcat, where we're going to have an engine connected device just like you do on your vehicles with the plug and plays, so that we're getting more accurate engine data.
That's
great.
awesome.
Great for billables on machines if they're being billed by the hour. Having those potential diagnostic trouble codes on your heavy equipment, having more accurate PMs around ECU engine hours versus accumulated or ignition on off based engine hours that can be inaccurate, right? So on the product side, there's some exciting new offerings we're going to have coming out in the next couple quarters here. On the software side, continuing to do some really cool enhancements. One we're getting close to finalizing that I think you'll like is a radar weather overlay for precipitation on the map. So you know what areas are having storms and things like that, so that you know what areas you might not be able to be working for the day. So think pool companies, think lawn and landscape, think roofing companies, think outdoor environment companies that could benefit by knowing what the weather is in certain areas. So that's a new enhancement coming down the pike. One of the really big projects that's in R&D right now for us is OEM integration. So companies like Ford and GM and Dodge and Toyota, a lot of newer trucks you can order with onboard OEM telematics. So what we're going to create is a deviceless program where we can ingest that OEM telematics and pump it into our easy to use software platform, so you guys have the same experience but without a device.
Perfect.
So some cool stuff like that coming down the pike that I think is going to be a lot of fun for existing clients, new logos, that will continue to hopefully propel our growth in the industry.
Awesome. Jeff, this has been a pleasure to have you on the show, talk with you off air a couple times here, talk with you on the actual podcast. It's been a pleasure. Where can our audience learn more about GPS Trackit, you yourself, wherever you want to send them to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Please go to www.gpstrackit.com. Learn all about us. Reach out. We'd love to talk to you about your business, your challenges, how we think we could help. Mike, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate it. Look forward to working with you some more in the future.
Awesome, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode with Jeff from GPS Trackit. If you need GPS tracking for your work vehicles, equipment in your landscaping business, go to gpstrackit.com/how-to-hardscape or follow along on our Instagram page. We'll be sharing more from GPS Trackit in the future on our stories. And thank you to GPS Trackit for supporting the How to Hardscape podcast. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.